First of all, a warm good evening to our guest speaker, Mr. Vivek Verma, and all the attendees for joining in for this webinar. It is indeed my pleasure to welcome you all to the webinar, The Future of Entrepreneurship, Emerging Trends and Opportunities, organized by World Trade Center Shamshabad, powered by WTC Forum for Economic Development, in association with the Hans India and BizBus. So to give a brief overview of the organizations, World Trade Center Shamshabad is a not-for-profit organization that is dedicated to support and empower the MSMEs in connecting them with 300 World Trade Centers in more than 100 countries. We can be your gateway to your international trade, promoting trade services, and changing the economic structure of all the stakeholders. We can facilitate business matchmakings and also assist you in global and regional supply chain connectivity. And to talk about the Hans India, it is the most popular and fastest growing English daily newspaper in the states of Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, and Delhi as well. So they have publications in Hyderabad, Warangal, Khammam in Telangana, Vijayawada, Vishakhapatnam, Tirupati, and Kurnool in Vijayawada, as well as Delhi. Known for its neutral stances, the Hans India has carved itself a separate niche for promoting the unbiased content. And the BizBus, the business e-daily, started in 2020, has now started its own print edition in February 2023. And it is known for showcasing the courageous entrepreneurs. And also it is committed to promote India as a global economic powerhouse. So we hope that this webinar provides you with valuable insights from our esteemed guest speaker. And now, without much of further ado, I would like to hand it over to you, sir. Uh, Please share your valuable thoughts on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vignesh. And good evening to all of you. Good evening to all the people who've joined. And I am looking forward to spending some time with you, talking a little bit about the entrepreneurship and the future that it holds for all of us. Let me just get my slides up. So good evening. My name is Vivek Verma. As the slide suggests, I'm the founder for a company called Upsearch. And we are going to spend some time talking about this topic called the future of entrepreneurship. What are the emerging trends and what are the opportunities? And I think the idea at the end of this session is for you all and all of us to understand that what does this word entrepreneurship mean for us and what's in it, what's the future look like, what's the future that this word holds and what all can we do with it. But I think because we are talking about this term called entrepreneurship, let's begin by saying what is the definition of entrepreneurship? And I'm sure most of you know that already, but I just thought to put it in context. The word entrepreneur is derived from the French word, which is entreprendre. It basically means to undertake. It is about making things happen. How do you kind of look at something and make that happen? Take the responsibility to making a difference. And that essentially is entrepreneurship. And that, I think, is a very important concept to understand, because a lot of times people get confused about the fact that entrepreneurship is just about startups. Actually, entrepreneurship is a mindset. It is about a thought process which says, I will make things happen. Now, if that is what entrepreneurship means, what does it actually mean from a economic growth and from a job creation perspective, which is what for us as entrepreneurs, as founders, which is what is more relevant for us, which is what we will try and see how do we address that here. It essentially promotes capital formation. It helps to create large-scale employment. And I think that's one of the biggest differentiators between being a job seeker and a job creator. And entrepreneurs are typically job creators. It promotes balanced regional development, because entrepreneurship is not limited to any geography. You could be an entrepreneur from Hyderabad, you can be an entrepreneur from Mumbai or Delhi or any other metro city. And it's not limited to metro cities. You could be an entrepreneur from tier 2, 3, 4, 7, 8. It doesn't matter. I know of entrepreneurs who are doing phenomenal work at the grassroots level, even in small villages and small towns. It reduces the concentration of economic power. I think that's like a no-brainer, that the more the number of entrepreneurs, the wealth is really divided and the economic power is getting divided between more and more people. And obviously it creates a lot more wealth, and it helps to distribute that wealth, because entrepreneurship is about spreading. Any new startup typically comes with 3, 4, 5 founders. So it makes sense for people to be doing more and more promotion, evangelization for that. It increases the gross national capital and per capita income. Obviously it helps to increase the economic power, which means the national economic power increases, but more importantly per capita also improves. It does improvement in the standard of living. Just one second. And the entrepreneurs are able to look at better things in life. It helps improve the standard of living that they have, promotes countries export trade, because a lot of these products or services are also exported. They are traded across borders. It induces backward and forward linkages and facilitates overall development. So entrepreneurship has a great impact from an economic growth perspective, and which is why all of us in this call who are either already successful entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs should look at this for sure. Now, as the topic suggests, I'm not here really to talk so much about entrepreneurship, because all of you who are on the call, I'm assuming, are already aware of that. I wanted to put the context of that, but then come to look out to the trends that are emerging as we look at the future and what we should be really aware of. And from my experience, I have put some slides and I'll talk about those briefly to you. I think digital nomadism is something which is here. I think the digital phase is something that we need to be fully aware of. The whole internet accessibility and high-speed internet, with the 5G, with Geo, with so many more things that are going to be happening in that space, is something that we need to be aware of. And that's a trend we cannot miss out on. And entrepreneurs are today geography independent, because the costs are such that, earlier you only could think of entrepreneurship in a Bangalore, in a Hyderabad, in a Delhi. It's no longer the case, because the costs and the fact that the talent is available across the country, and COVID has really made a massive difference to that. So these are trends that I'm talking about, which are very, very important, that we need to be aware of as entrepreneurs. Mobile commerce, I think today the amount of transactions that are happening on mobiles across the country, and this is one revolution where I think India made a massive difference and has been ahead of most other countries in the world, is to say how we've adopted to the whole mobile commerce that is happening. And I think anyone who's looking at any entrepreneurship venture at this stage needs to be aware of that mobile commerce is going to be phenomenally powerful. So we need to be on the mobile commerce space, without which it will not really work. And this doesn't mean just about product information. The entire transactions are happening on the mobile phone piece, because at the end of the day, the payments and all of that are also very, very important. Social commerce, I think the amount of transactions that are happening on the social media properties, there are enough companies, enough initiatives I know who are only on social media. They transact their entire business on social media today. And I think that is another trend that we need to be aware. So if you are doing anything today and you are not present on the social media, then I think that is going to be a challenge. So we need to be fully aware and understand these tools that are available. And if you don't, then you should kind of consult somebody, understand the social media properties, be it Facebook, be it Instagram, be it Twitter. Depending on where your target or audience is going to be available, you need to be present there, and you need to be dynamically present there. So it's not just about like good old days where you had a website and that's about it. Now it's gone a lot more further, and you need to be visible there for people to be able to see and understand this better. The gig economy, I think, we've seen some of these brands that you see on the right, that the whole new economy, the global gig economy is growing. And, the numbers are mind boggling. It is expected to balloon to a 455 billion, this thing by 2023, as one of the publication puts it there. But I think more importantly, it's the benefits that people are going to be getting, that, there is lesser compensation packages, less overhead costs, and less equipment maintenance, because it's all moving to a asset light model. It's all moving to technology, which is going to be driving a lot of these. And it's not as the earlier economy was, which was all industry based, which was all very heavy asset based. But at the same time, one has to really focus on the supply side, because like I said, today people are doing social media commerce, the tier 2, tier 7, tier 8 towns. Now, how is the delivery going to happen? How is the supply side going to be managed between the supply and demand, is something that we need to really work on. And this is where a lot of the entrepreneurs are not able to make the mark, because they haven't really thought through this in great detail. So I would very strongly urge any of you looking at businesses which involves physical delivery, that think through this whole supply chain piece well. Also, the myth that has got broken is that niche markets won't work. In fact, as an investor, I can tell you that, I have invested in over 30, 40 companies. I work with over 200 companies as a mentor. The clearer the niche that has been identified by the entrepreneur, the better is the success that that company can expect, because that is where the future really lies. And how well have you understood your niche? How well have you understood your customer? And how well is your product created such that it is fulfilling that needs of that niche that are there? The question is, how big is the niche? Obviously, we need to be careful and make sure that the niche is large enough for your business to survive and to become scalable business in the next few years. But a niche is an important aspect to fulfill. Very often I hear startups who come and say, my product is such that every person, every one of the 7 billion people in the world can use my product, and they are my target market. And my immediate answer as an investor, as a mentor, is that then you haven't really identified a good problem to solve, because a problem to solve, which is with every human being, is a very difficult one that you're going to be able to do. So important to find a niche and focus on that niche, understand, create a customer-centric model in that niche, which will help develop the business going forward. Again, subscription based businesses, a lot of businesses today, because information flow is what has become a very, very important piece today. And a lot of businesses want a relationship which is subscription based. A lot of customers want that, I want this information. I don't want a very heavy upfront payment. Let it be more like a service kind of a model. I'll pay a subscription and I will become a member and let the information keep coming. And I think that becomes a advantage for both. As an entrepreneur, it gives you a steady source of income over a period of time. And as a customer, it gives you a method to pay a lower charge on an ongoing basis. So it kind of works for both. So we need to be aware that, is there a way for you to create a mechanism in your business to at least have some set of customers who are subscription based? And today people are doing some very intelligent and smart innovations to even have product which are being marketed through a subscription based model. Quite often you see people are not selling the product. They're saying you become a user of the product and we'll work with you on a SaaS model, or on a model where I continue to earn some revenue for you and stay engaged with you. So this whole subscription based model is something, I think, which is rising and will continue to rise as we go forward. Needless to say, I think disruptive technologies are going to continue to relentlessly chase us. So are we keeping pace with them? Are we understanding what is happening in the market space today. And anyone who was in the knowledge industry, for example, has to now fully be aware that chat GPT is something which is going to make that knowledge available to most subscribers at the tip of their fingertips in a matter of a few seconds. So how do you still stay relevant is an important piece from a disruptive technology that we need to look at. And also we need to look at what is the competition, where is the market share going to be taken from, and how are you managing the marketplace from a market share perspective using these disruptive technologies. Social responsibility in the last many years, I think this was already beginning to shape up very well. The last 2-3 years has really taken it to the next level, because today social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, sustainability, EHS, ESG, these are words which have become a very, very important word. SDGs, all of these are very, very critical. And I think as an entrepreneur, it is very critical that we look at the product and businesses that we are doing. Are they ethical? Are they sustainable? What kind of footprint are they creating around the world? And how do we make sure that the social responsibility is also getting fulfilled besides just the commercial responsibility or the economic responsibility which your startup or the entrepreneur has? Diversity, I think, diversity and inclusion has also become a buzzword, very important, because the large sections of our society were not included in the economic development, in the economic growth that was happening. The importance today is much larger here, and this is not just restricted to gender-based diversity. Usually most people think about that only as that, but diversity also means that there are people who have physical challenges, who have mental challenges. How do we engage them? How do we work with them? Because that then makes the business a lot more holistic, and it also helps you bring diverse points of views into your business. And it helps you understand the mindsets of people in a much better manner, because when you bring diversity, as the word suggests, it gives you a lot more diverse set of opinions and thoughts which you can implement within your business. While delivery, I talked about a little earlier, I think, the combination of warehousing, supply chain, and a combination which includes hyper-local shops is becoming very, very critical. All of us who use mobile commerce today are looking for how can this become faster. If I'm ordering grocery, given about 4 years ago, if the grocery was ordered today and it was delivered tomorrow, it was okay. Today, I'm ordering, a loaf of bread, and I want it delivered in the next 10 to 15 minutes. The only way that can happen if there is a hyper local store somewhere from where this delivery can happen very, very quickly. So I think that is something which is, and a lot of people are making businesses out of these hyper local stores, because hyper local business is not just about grocery. It's about many, many other commodities which can be delivered, and maybe in the future, today grocery, medicines, these are the ones who are using this, but in future maybe more and more products will be available on these platforms. And how do we make these available to consumers in the fastest possible manner is where the future could lie. Entrepreneurship earlier was thought about that, you had to gain 10 years, 15 years, 20 years of work experience before you became an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurship was only after you've experienced a particular domain and all of that. Many of you who may have experienced that yourself, but certainly you see it in the world today. Entrepreneurship starts with people who are in their early teens, have no experience, haven't even completed their formal education, but they have had an idea, they understood a problem, they created a solution, they have the passion to scale that and take it to a much larger level. As a member of TIE, the Indus Entrepreneurs organization, which is a global organization, I ran a program which was meant for high school children to become entrepreneurs. and I ran that, or I was associated with them for about 6 to 8 years. And it's phenomenal to see the talent today in the youngsters who are wanting to become entrepreneurs. Many of them today are very clear from their school days that they will never do a job. They will help create jobs. They will find solutions. They will build organizations and grow them. So we need to be aware that, that is the competition we are going to be facing, which means these are people who are going to be having loads and loads of energy, brilliant new thought process. This is a digital native generation which was born in the digital world. So if someone who comes from the old generation like me, who has to adopt to digital, and if I'm going to be competing with someone who's a digital first generation, then I need to be aware, because then they have a definite advantage. Now, one is to look at it as a competition. The second is to look at it saying, how do I collaborate? How do I get youngsters in my team? How do I get them to become a co-founder? How do I get them to become key, let's say, a technology geek in my organization, because they understand this space very, very well? And how do I take their knowledge, their skills, advantage, and take my organization to the next level? And if those are some of the trends that are available, or are things which we are seeing today, what could be the opportunities that we see? Because at the end of the day, I think it all needs to translate to opportunities. And as the cliche goes, what's in it for me? And many of you in the audience today also may be thinking that if those are the trends, what does it mean for me? So I think, one opportunity that I see is the fact that I think emerging markets are where disruptive innovation is going to happen. I talked about that earlier, that it's no longer restricted to geographies. And I think the classic example has been of India as a whole. Today, during the COVID, we have, whether it's the vaccines or whether it is many other stories that we could create, that I think you can disrupt the market today, because the technology and the way the world is operating is no longer dependent on the old giants to run this business. So it is important that the innovation is focused in such a manner that I'm solving a problem. Doesn't matter where the innovation is coming from. And the whole world is moving to this model where you're moving to smaller cities, in you're moving to emerging markets, which helps you to lower your capital cost. It helps you to bring digital savvy youngsters, and even governments in a lot of states today are looking at, whether it's the digital India, whether it is the startup India. Everyone is focusing on saying, how do we focus on disruptive innovation? Because that's where the future is going to be lying. And like I said, government policies, they've done so many things towards this. And these are just some examples. There are many, many more. There are these Atal incubation centers. I'm told close to 100 of them now, AICs across the country. There is the whole MSME market development that is going on. Women is a very large focus on the entrepreneurship side. State government, central government, many corporates are working towards saying, how do we get more women in the entrepreneurial world? And like I said, many, many other schemes, and if you Google search about this, like I said, I found a few, and I'm sure this is just a small percentage of many, many more that the government is also doing to support. Lots of financial outlay has been made through some of these names here, and many more besides this. It is about addressing the social and environmental challenges. This was something which I didn't see very much in the entrepreneurship world, let's say 10 or 15 years ago. There was the commercial world, which was supposed to be the cutting edge technology, innovation, and all of that. And then there was the distant cousin of social organizations, which were not adopting to technology. Nobody was focusing on them. Today, that's not the case. Whether it's the climate change, which is forcing us to do this, whether it's the global warming, which is pushing us to do that, or whether it's our own conscious awakening of the fact that we need to be more social and environmentally aware, and doing our own bits towards that is becoming a very, very important piece. So in your businesses, like I said earlier, sustainability, ESG need to be a very, very critical part. each organization is creating impact, and it's important that we all start understanding and measuring the impact that we are creating through our organization on the world. And we don't need to be a not-for-profit organization to create impact. Even a for-profit commercial organization is creating impact, and we need to be consciously aware of that and measure that. And if our enterprise is doing something which is damaging the world, or damaging, whether it's, let's say, a plastic, if we are a very heavy user of plastic in our industry, then I think we need to start focusing on what can we do to balance that. And that is a very, very important issue that we need to address, but it also gives you opportunities of what can be done as an entrepreneur in that space. And when we talk about that, if you start from raising the possible, which is providing sustainable business models, growing sustainable market supply. So that's what I would think the first few things you can do from a long-term sustainable business. But then you need to increase the awareness about the problem, advocate sustainable procurement. If you're in the startup, you're an organization, are you procuring sustainable products yourself? Are you offering customers an alternate if the product has something which is damaging the globe? Inspiring people to demand a job with purpose. Purpose is becoming so much more. I see so many youngsters today who are motivated by the purpose your organization has. So as an entrepreneur, do keep in mind that you need to see if you've created a purpose for the organization. Because as some of you may know, Simon Sinek, one of the greatest thought leaders in visioning space globally, says people don't buy what you sell, people buy why you sell. We need to look at supporting the impact of investing, and how we are looking at that aspect. We need to raise the standards through voluntary industry agreements. It's not just about the government. We all need to do things on our own. We need to raise standards through certifications and labelings. And again, that could be an opportunity. If you are in a niche market, where can you do some certifications? Can you help organizations label? And if you are in the industry yourself, are you using these tools or not? And fueling a discussion in politics and changing government policy. Quite often we find that the government themselves may not be fully aware of these changes. So can you influence that and work towards changing that? When we talk about social entrepreneurship, which I touched earlier, all of us may know the Ratan Tatas, Kumar Mangal Birlas, and people like that. But do we also know these phenomenal social entrepreneurs that exist in the world? Somebody called Anshu Gupta, who created an organization which just completed 25 years called Goonj. Goonj works on reviving and the barter economy and creating a phenomenal model for rural development. Jiru Bilimoria, the Childline India Foundation, or Chetna Sinha for the Mandeshi Bank. She went to a rural location in Maharashtra and worked with women who did not know any reading, writing, anything like that, and worked with them, and today runs a very large bank which these women run. And they've created a model of employment, of wealth generation, and all of that. And similarly, Harish Hande from Selco. So there are these people who have done phenomenal organization building, focusing on social challenges and social entrepreneurship. And that is something we can learn a lot from. So if you go and Google any of these organizations, there'll be lots of lessons that we can all learn, which may be useful to us. Now, everything in life is not going to be a bed of roses, I'm sure, as we know. So there are going to be some challenges, and we need to be aware of that challenges. And I've listed a few of them here for you to get a sense of that. The challenges are going to be around policy, market, human capital, the supports that we get from various places, the culture, and of course, and needless to say, finance. Where are we going to get the money from? Because at the end of the day, the business is going to require the money. Now, there are going to be barriers in addition to that. Like I said, capital is one of them, which is an economic barrier. It's also about people, raw material. Have we thought through the land and building and other infrastructure requirements? There are going to be environmental barriers. and there are going to be personal barriers. And I want to really focus here on personal barriers. If we want to look at entrepreneurship, then I think we have to overcome the lack of confidence, the lack of sustained motivation. As an entrepreneur, I can't be motivated one day and not be motivated another day, because over a period of time, many more lives are going to depend on us, whether they are our employees, there are suppliers, or there are our customers. And I think that is a very, very important skill that we have to develop. And that's where, as a mentor, I work with many founders to coach them, to mentor them, because it's a very lonely journey. The journey of a founder of a company is a very lonely journey. You can't usually talk about the problems to your employees, quite often even to your families. So find that coping mechanism so that you have motivation going forward. The lack of patience. If you don't have patience, that is going to be a challenge, and that's a skill or a muscle you'll have to develop. And you have to be able to dream big. And if you don't dream big, then again, you're doing some amount of damage to the organization, because the organization is looking up to you to dream big, to lead the organization to the next level. And that's the role of an entrepreneur, to dream big and then make it happen. You know, the whole regulatory challenge, all of us cope with it all the time, is about, mergers, acquisitions, who's going to be coming and trying to take you over, and play those games, about delayed payments. You're not getting because your cash flow is going to get impacted in a very big way. What are the rules and regulations? Have you understood that whole ecosystem is a very important aspect. IP in today's world, in my view, is one of the biggest things you need to create for yourself and create methods to protect. So you need to study that ecosystem very well, get engaged with a good quality IP lawyer who can help develop that, because that becomes your property and your valuations will start depending on the IP you have created. And compliance systems today is very critical. We see this all the time, whether it is the large scale, conversations the country is going through over the last few weeks, or even at a small scale, that if there are challenges on the compliance mechanism, then it can cause a lot of headache for everyone involved. Like I said, artificial intelligence is something which is going to make one of the biggest differences in the future, as it started now, which we call the fourth industrial revolution. The first revolution was about mechanical things, second was about mass production, third was about automation. And I think the fourth industrial revolution is going to be around artificial intelligence, big data, robotics, and all of this, because this is where a lot of disruption is going to happen. Like I said, ChatGPT is just one example of how it's completely disrupted many industries. And we need to be aware, but more importantly, that's where the opportunities will lie. Now, if all of that is the opportunities, the problems, and trends that we've seen, I think, what do we need to do as entrepreneurs to become successful? Because at the end of the day, all that may be true, but if we don't do some steps at our end, we may not see the success. So I think it's critical that we look at strategic planning. Long-term thinking is something we need to do. And this is coming from my experience of working with 250 plus startups today, working with many incubators and many colleges, that people don't do a strategic long-term plan. People don't watch your competition. One of the common things I hear from many startups is that I don't have a competitor. And my only answer to them is that if you are solving a problem which exists today, then somebody must be solving that problem. That somebody may not be your immediate direct competitor, but that problem is being solved by somebody. That person is your competitor. So if I'm an Uber when I started, and if I say there is nobody else like me, and hence I have no competition, I think it's a wrong statement to make. Public transport was your competition if you were the founder of Uber when it started. So watch your competition, and not just limited to somebody doing exactly what you're doing, but somebody who's solving the problem that you are solving. Keep a close eye on your competitors. This is very, very critical, because if you don't see what your competitors are doing, they will just eat you for breakfast. And that's not going to be a very healthy thing for you to happen. So keep watching your competition, keep staying close to your customers. Again, in the initial days, many people stay connected to the customers, but as the business progresses, we forget that important aspect, and that does not work. Monitor profit margins. At the end of the day, as I say, the cliche is the only business of a business is to do business. I repeat, the only business of a business is to do business. So if you're not watching your bottom line, if you're not watching your profits, and you're going to die in 1 or 2 years, I think you've done a great damage to the entrepreneurial business or entrepreneurial venture that you started. And for doing that, cash flow is a very critical piece. Profitability is different than cash flow, and be mindful of that, that we need to work on our cash flow. If your business requires funding, then your bankers and the investors are somebody who you need to be constantly in touch with, because then they know how the company is progressing. And when you have the right time to raise the funds, you don't have to start that journey from scratch. People are very important, whether it's the co-founding team or the founding team members who you're bringing on board, who are going to carry the passion forward, is very important. So start putting the right systems in place from a people management perspective, because the culture is going to get built there. Ensure legal and regulatory compliance. Build documentation in such a manner that it can last you when you have difficulties. One lesson I can tell the entrepreneurs on the call here is I have seen many agreements which is created between two friends who are very good friends and hence starting an entrepreneurial journey together. And the agreement at various places says that we will settle this with mutual agreement. Now, you will refer to this agreement only when your mutual agreement method stops working. Because if I and you as co-founders are working well together, I'm not going to refer to the agreement. We'll take decisions and we'll move on. Only when you and me will stop working together is when we will go and say, okay, let's refer to the agreement. What does it say to settle this dispute? And the last thing you want the agreement to tell you is that you have to settle this mutually. So try and build as many clauses, as many things in the agreement so that you have clarity before you start, that if something was to go wrong, we know how we are going to address it. And last but not the least is not just your website, but website and social media properties updated so that the world knows the latest of what you are doing today. Now, just a few things here, and I'll skip through this very quickly, but market research is a very, very important tool in the market. When we talked about knowing your customers, knowing your competition, I think the market research is a very important topic. Idea validation needs to be done. And these few points in the end I'm talking about are where I see many entrepreneurs not focusing enough. So I've just put a slide so you get a sense of that you need to validate your idea. And validation can't be from your family members and your neighbors. It needs to be from the right customers who will pay for your product. So idea validation is a very important thing. I think resilience is something we need to build in us as human beings and into our entrepreneurial journey so that we are agile, flexible, adaptive, innovative, we can create prevention mechanisms, and we are responsive. So this will create the whole resilience model which needs to be created in the board. Team, I talked about already, that we need to start focusing on good quality team because it will give us lots and lots of advantages as we go forward in the team. And we need to create a very strong network, and net worth versus network. You would have heard this cliche many times, but as an entrepreneur, creating a very strong network is a very important thing to do. And that will help people see you, will help generate business opportunities, will help generate an ecosystem or a community, and will help share the solutions and tools that you have. One of the other critical things is from a fundraising strategy, we need to look at, there are people who are bootstrapping all the way up to crowdfunding. And this again is a trend we need to be aware that it's no longer just one or two models for raising a fund. Crowdfunding and And business incubators are places where you can get some good quality funding. And if you can participate in these new methods for raising fund, it's going to be really useful. And these are just some examples of crowdfunding platforms that exist today where you can get funding. And this wasn't a big thing a couple of years ago, but now this is becoming a important aspect for entrepreneurs to understand. Women, some people are focused on just helping women entrepreneurs to get funded. And these are again just names, that some of the names that I have suggested here, but there are many more. So be aware that you can find specific funding agencies if you're a women entrepreneur. There are some new financing options like income share agreement or revenue-based finance. Now, income share agreement is I don't need to raise the money. I partner with somebody and say, as the income comes through, some of it will go to you, some of it will come to me. So I'm not raising any debt or equity, but I'm doing a revenue share agreement. Similarly, there is revenue-based financing. So as the revenue grows, my repayment of that amount that I take from somebody will also goes. So that way also, I don't need to change my cap table too much, and I can find a method to raise finance through these alternate options. The whole business models are also changing, or the way the narrative is changing here in terms of collaboration. So how do we look at collaborative consumption? How do we look at knowledge? How do we look at production, finance, commerce? And in every space, there are so many different things happening, like in collaborative commerce, second-hand buying and selling. Today there are so many platforms like an OLX where you can sell and buy very critical niche products that you are looking for or you're wanting to sell. AI and machine learning, I talked about earlier. I won't repeat that, but there is so much happening in AI, whether it's on the analytical side, functional side, interactive side, text side, or visual side. AI is I think if you are not up to terms with AI in your business, then I think you have some real good ground to cover. So you should do that very, very quickly. Very strong urge to all of you to spend some time on impact of AI on your business and how can you use AI to take your business to the next level. Machine learning, similarly, lots of great stuff happening in the machine learning space, whether it be voice recognition, whether it be data analysis or the sensory data analysis. The whole healthcare industry is developing on the sensory data analysis that's happening today. So how do we look at doing that? And how do we look at customization in that using machine learning? Sustainable business practices, the whole focus on circular economy. So many more companies are becoming large companies because of the whole recycling space, whether it's on the raw material side or on the waste utilization side or the waste disposal side. So there's so much things, and if some of you have been watching Shark Tank recently, you can see some of these circular economy entrepreneurs coming and raising a few crores of capital because people are now waking up to the fact that this is a large space. Somebody finding a method to dispose sanitary napkins through a nice machine which does not take that plastic to go into the landfill, for example, is a good startup in this space. So lots of work happening in the circular economy, in the sustainable business value chain, whether it's on the governance side or on the economic side. As a result, I think the key things which I want to, coming towards the end of my presentation here, is to really look at the future of entrepreneurship is going to be defined by digital agility, resilience, and speed. While we have to adopt to this technology and all of that, which comes from the agility and the resilience, and the new age is of a very diverse entrepreneurship. Even for those of you who come from an entrepreneurial family, and if you sit down with your elder generation, your parents, your uncles, your aunts, or your grandparents, I think the business has changed drastically. And that's where you see a lot of the educational institutes are also offering programs today around family managed businesses, because the evolution that has happened in the whole concept of entrepreneurship needs to be brought in. So we need to be aware of that already. and the solutions are location independent. And I think that is a key from an entrepreneurship perspective. And when you look at the individuals, the entrepreneurs, then intuitiveness, mastering the mind and the body, this is a very critical. Like I said earlier, entrepreneur's life is a very difficult life. You're going to be signing up to be doing that for a few years, at least till your business does not stabilize. So you need to know how you can manage your stress levels, your anxiety, and your loneliness better. And one of the best things I advise to people is to sign up with a good mentor or a coach who can help you in this journey. But that is a very important aspect. You need to be creative. You need to have limitless vision and the ability to execute that limitless vision. And I say limitless because whatever vision you create may get fulfilled in 2, 3 years. And at that stage, you need to create a new vision, the next version of your vision, and so on and so forth. So it is limitless in that sense. And I think a very important aspect is also improved learning abilities. And not just learning, but also unlearning. Because a lot of things what worked for you so far may not work for you in the future because of your scale, because of your evolution, or because of time. So you need to have the ability to unlearn and learn, because that's where the future is really going to be lying. And it is important to become an entrepreneur. The future, in my view, and I've spent 30 plus years in the corporate world as an employee, but I still say the future, in my view, lies in entrepreneurial ability. So becoming an entrepreneur, because the demand in wider economy is going to be very, very large. It needs more and more entrepreneurs to fulfill that. We need to nurture the creativity, productivity, and innovation. We need to develop communities. We need to create social change, like I said earlier, and we need to do a lot more product and research and development, both in the product and the service space. And last but not the least, the whole integration of political and economic integration, that is very, very critical, that will happen in the future. So, welcome to the world of becoming an entrepreneur. And that's where the future really lies. And I would urge you all, and I would upsurge you all, take that to go to the next level and become an entrepreneur. And thank you very much to Hans India, to BizBuzz, to the World Trade Center, Shamshabad, and Vishakhapatnam to call me to talk about this entrepreneurship.